Hey, what's up?
Book's crazy. She's over there tearing shit up. What are you tearing shit up for? Show's just started.
I know. Well, we're all in here, so she's gonna act up.
She's thrown 2 books on the ground.
Oh yeah. She pulled some books out. She's like,
if you're new to the show, Pooks is our cat.
She's not paying attention.
She runs up to the bookcases. She just goes like this and starts pulling books out of the shelves, and then looks at you.
And then leaves a little pile.
Yeah, and then she looks at you. She looks at you like, you're not gonna do anything. I said, no, I'm not gonna do anything.
Look what I do.
Look at it. She's blinking at me. She's looking at you. Yeah, I'm talking about you.
She's like, that's, she knows.
I'm talking about you. Yeah.
We'll say, hey, happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Yeah. We had
Tom, you should have worn a Cupid outfit.
No, that's just natural. It's just an internal fucking Cupid aura. Now, y'all have to.
You should have worn like a diaper.
Y'all have to put those damn effects on fucking Instagram and shit to make it sound. I'm like that. It's just the way it is.
He's got that glow around him.
Yeah. Yeah. It just doesn't come across in fucking camera.
Oh, is that what it is?
Gotta be in person.
Okay.
The force doesn't go across the digital lines like that.
It has something to do with the technological blah blah blah. Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah, we had our little Valentine's Day lunch today. Went to a new place because we were gonna go to Momiji. We were gonna go do Japanese, and then I was just kind of like, oh wait, like Momiji isn't open on Mondays.
Yeah.
And they were not open today, so I was like, let's go get some seafood. So we went to a new place in Eustis.
I got it on video.
And it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I'll show it to you.
The Crazy Gator.
Yeah.
They have so they had like fish and steaks and sandwiches, and they did have some gator. They had a gator po' boy, but I'm like, man,
I don't like alligators.
I'm not a big fan of it. Like, it's not terrible, but it's not my favorite thing. If there's other things, I just got shrimp and scallop and some taters. That's what I got. But yeah, we went there. We went there kind of early because we had other shit we had to do. Yeah, see, it's over on the bay or river or whatever the fuck that is. I don't know. We never been over there before. Never been over there.
Yeah, we were like some of the first people in there.
Yeah, they had just opened.
They just opened.
There were some people back there, but
yeah, but it had
nice. It was
view.
nice and cold out, so everybody was. Well, it's 50. It was 50 degrees, which is cold for Florida. So there were little people in jackets walking around out there. But yeah, a new place where there's like 3 or 4 seafood restaurants right along that road, but we'd never been up there before. So yeah, that was pretty good. Tom also got me like a big old box of truffles.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
put some weight on her.
Like I need any more.
Get her to bulk up.
Well, I had to hide the box because it's like it's squishy on because it's squishy on the top, and Pookie's like I can sit, and I'm like let's not sit on that because it's squishy like a cushion. But yeah, so we thought because it was Valentine's Day and because Shudder just added this movie not too long ago, and we did My Bloody Valentine last year. So I was like, well, let's do Valentine from 2001, a slasher movie. You know what's weird, though? When we watched it, I could have sworn that I had seen it before. But when I was watching it again, I'm like, you know what? I don't think I did see this. Or if I did see it, I didn't remember anything about it. You know?
Yeah. I'm
not a massive fan of slashers from this era. And the strange thing about this is because I kind of feel like they were, you had slashers, they kind of had their heyday like in the 80s, and then Wes Craven made Scream in 1996, which sort of revitalized the genre, but a lot of the ones that came in the wake of Scream were kind of more self-aware. This one, not so much. This one is actually kind of more like an 80s slasher. It almost kind of reminded me like a Prom Night or something like that. But I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I really didn't get anything out of this movie.
It's very, it's generic. Not bad, but yeah, it's generic. Very meh.
It's just a movie of its time, and movies from this time were just like, what? Just very generic.
Yeah, it's basically like a whole bunch of like pretty people who... And seriously, it was like 3 blonde chicks, and 4 blonde chicks? I
don't know.
And 1 dark, and Denise Richards.
Yeah.
But the other ones...
She was standing out, though. She was always cute.
Yeah, but like the other ones were just kind of like, wait, is this that one or that one? You know what I mean? They just, because they kind of looked, they had a similar kind of look to them.
They did back then. Everybody kind of did.
I know, but, and especially like in these kind of movies... I will say this is not actually a bad slasher for the time, but like you said, it doesn't have like a super huge amount of personality to it, but there are some things I liked about it. I did like the mask that the killer had, like that weird like Cupid mask. I did like that. That was distinctive. I liked some of the kills. I liked some of the funny shit that they put in it, because the weird thing about this is that it is a slasher movie, but it also has kind of like a mystery element to it, and there's a bunch of red herrings, because like pretty much every man in this is a dirtbag, even the cop, and so I mean they set it up that way for a reason, so anybody could be the killer. So I thought that was like kind of entertaining. So I liked that mystery aspect to it. And I didn't really guess exactly what the end was going to be. You know what I mean?
I didn't dislike the movie. I just don't remember much of it because it made very little impression. It was just kind of a generic movie. It really kind of brought me back to this era when a lot of things were kind of samey. I didn't really feel connected to a lot of these movies from this time. Even to
no, me neither. And this
just kind of coming and going, and you're like, yeah, another one. Yeah, okay, here's another one. They just, at this time in my life when these things were coming out, they just weren't making an impression on me. They were kind of coming across almost like Hallmark movies from Hallmark. They were like
except horror.
But horror. Yeah, they were kind of.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
The old 70s and 80s ones, even some of the 90s ones, because they were imperfect and fucking crazy, you remembered them. And you kind of get pulled into them sometimes. These were almost too vanilla.
Yeah, I think that was the problem. And honestly, I had forgotten too, like watching this, I was like, oh my God, this is the most 2001 movie I've ever seen, I think, just because everyone was just so bland and pretty. And also that soundtrack, Marilyn Manson, Orgy, Linkin Park. I was just like, oh my God. It was just like, I was like, it's funny because when you lived through that era, like when you lived through 2001 and you were just kind of like, you remember that music, but it didn't really stand out. But now, like watching it now, I was just like, oh my God, that's like such a time capsule of an era, even though you didn't really like realize it at the time. Because at the time, like nothing seemed all that distinctive, like when you're living through it, you know what I mean? It's only like in hindsight that you're looking back and going, oh my God, that's so 2001 that it hurts.
In 2001, this movie would have been just like really mainstream. That's how I would have.
Well, yeah, it definitely is. Now, it did. I think this only cost $10 million to make, and it did make a couple times its money back. I think it made 36,000 million or 40 million, something like that. So, but I don't think they made any sequels or anything. Danny Rowling said this film's way better than the I Know What You Did Last Summer films. I will agree with that. Yeah. That kind of had. Well, that's weird because that was based on a novel too, I think. So was this. This was based on a novel by Tom Savage, which I haven't read, but I heard that this was just very loosely based on it. And I mean, it was kind of floating around for a long time before they actually got it made, which, like most movies. About this actually had like some pretty big stars in it. Like I said, Denise Richards was in it, who I feel like it was the law. She had to be in everything. She had to be in all that shit. In 2001.
Late 90s.
Late 90s, 2001. She was in all the movies.
Mid 90s too, she was in.
Yeah, that's true.
Fucking Starship Troopers.
Yeah, I remember her from Wild Things. Yeah. She was in a shit ton of movies. This had David, how do you pronounce his last name? Boreanaz or whatever from Angel,
Yeah, that guy was in everything too.
Yeah, that guy. What's weird is I always confuse him with that Schaefer guy that was in shit, man. What was that Clive Barker movie about Midian? Fuck, you know what I'm talking about.
All that shit's a blur.
Yeah, because is it me or do they like look the same? Because I think I made when David Boreanaz came up in this movie, I think I made a joke about going back to Midian or something. I'm like, oh wait, that's not that Schaefer dude that was in that. I'm like, oh shit, that's not funny anymore. Oh well. And also Katherine Heigl was in this, and I think the first time I saw her, I know she was on like a TV show around this time, but I didn't really watch any TV. I think the first time I'd seen her was in Knocked Up with Seth Rogen, and I think that was 2006. So she's pretty young in this, and spoiler alert, she gets killed like pretty early, which honestly, that was one thing that I kind of liked, is that you think that she's going to be the main character because she's like this med student. They kind of spend like a lot of time with her, and she's like, oh, I have this final tomorrow, and she's at the morgue and everything, like at the opening in
Nightbreed.
Nightbreed, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know why for some reason that the name of that movie always escapes me.
Yeah, Oscar Perez, man. Yeah, I agree, man. The Scream franchise was also vanilla as fuck. I didn't like the Scream.
I liked the first one.
I didn't like
the other ones were okay, but I didn't really bother with them after.
I wasn't into that shit when it was appearing. In this era, I was more into shit kind of like Ginger Snaps. I would have liked that kind of stuff.
Ginger Snaps came out in 2000, so like a year before this.
Yeah, I would have been more into. But there was more movies that were like that. More goth, more underground stuff that people.
And that was Canadian.
And that was Canadian.
Yeah.
Right. And stuff that really didn't that the mainstream really they wouldn't understand it. It's usually this shit would undersell, but goths of the time understood it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this one,
mainstream is more like Scream in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one, like I said, there's nothing necessarily wrong with this one. I liked some of the, you know what was my favorite scene? Well, honestly, one of my favorite scenes was, I liked the scene where Denise Richards gets killed, like in the hot tub where he puts the cover over it, and then he's like drilling through it like into her shoulder and stuff. I dug that, and then like she gets electrocuted. So I did like the kills in this, but honestly, my favorite scene in this was like not even a kill. It was when that dude picked up, like was flirting with Denise Richards at the party, and he says, let's go upstairs, I have a surprise for you. And I'm thinking in my head, it's your penis, isn't it? And then so like they get up there, and indeed it is his penis. And it's funny, like the scene, because it's like he just drops his pants like ta-da, and she's like looking at it, and I'm like, what, does it have two prongs or tentacles, or what's the surprise? I've seen those. So and then she plays along with the shit, and then she ties him to the bed and puts a fucking, because he asked her to wax it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you probably don't want to use that terminology because, of course, there's candles all over the thing. So she, like, drips hot wax all over his dick. So I thought that was hilarious.
Oscar says some funny shit. Because Katherine Heigl's a bitch, just like Brie Larson. The chicks they're chicks that think that they're better than they are. Yeah, and it's Brie Larson. Brie Larson and her fucking claws. She got fucking claws for feet. Fucking... She's wearing some fucking open-toed shoes, and people were pointing out, look at her fucking feet. And... they don't know what it is that they're seeing. If you take a woman who's kind of slender to begin with, and you put her on Winstrol, she'll lose a lot of fucking weight in her fingers and her fucking feet and her toes. Because you start losing the weight in those lower extremities. And they'll get hands that are kind of fucking bony looking, and they'll get feet that look like fucking claws. That's the first thing that happens if you're fucking real thin and you're on Winstrol. They all take... performance drugs, all of them. Those starlet girls that are all being hot and shit. If you think those girls are natural, you're fucking crazy. If you think all those dudes that are buffed out, you know what I mean, that in their superhero costumes, you think those dudes are natural, you're a child. Those dudes are on all kinds of shit. Under doctor's supervision. But no, they're on all kinds of stuff. And that's just a side effect. It's funny, they're talking about her feet, and I'm looking at it, oh yeah, Winstrol feet. Yeah.
Mango says, it's time Hallmark spanned out into seasonal horror movies. Yeah, when are they going to do that? I mean, I kind of want to see that.
Once the...
I kind of feel like they I think, do they do Halloween ones? I kind of feel like, I don't watch them, but I've seen, Christmas ones and Thanksgiving ones and shit like that. I don't know if they do Halloween ones, but I'm sure they're kind of like happy, clappy, kind of like, Goosebumps, but not as scary.
Hallmark Channel is making a living off the very end of the baby boomers. So you're talking 70s and 80s, a lot of octogenarians. And they're not being replaced. Evidently, their numbers are going down. So as their clientele ages out, they're not being replaced at a quick enough rate. So it would behoove it if television survived, which it won't, okay. But if Hallmark wants to survive as some kind of a fucking streaming service or a studio... they're going to have to fucking do shit like that. Make horror movies. Because it's low investment, high return. Which is really what a lot of channels are trying to do with shit like A Haunting episode and fucking Animal Adventures, Haunted on the Road, fucking season 7. They're making horror movies is what they're doing. It's cheap and they get an easy return. But yeah, imagine that shit. Get Hallmark making horror movies. They would just change their name They would have because that brand I don't think would do well on.
They should call it Hellmark.
They would call it something else like Hellmark, and that would actually be a brilliant name, Hellmark.
Yeah, I just thought up to that off the top of my fucking head.
Well, you're not sound steak, you sound
Thank
sizzle.
you.
You sound sizzle. That's what advertisement's all about. That's what
I know. I work in it.
About. Bam, Hellmark. It's a good one.
And then you could, and then at the end you'd have like a little devil tail with a pitchfork on it.
And Jenny, I tell you, I come up with good fucking book titles too. I can come up with good book titles.
Jenny, did you find Denise Richards hot in Wild Things? Yeah, I mean she's just hot in general. You know what's weird about this movie though? I kind of feel like it needed more nudity.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, because there wasn't really any nudity, was there? There was a lot of like scantily clad ladies. But not really any nudity that I remember. No boobies.
2000s nudity wasn't real illicit anyway. It didn't have that skankiness to it that 70s and 80s nudity had.
That's
quite
true.
The same.
It's like you can't see the tan lines or like a little bit of unshaven bush or anything.
They weren't quite, well, the girls didn't look slutty enough. They looked homogenized in the 2000s.
Yeah, that's true. They kind of all looked like they came out of the same factory.
Yeah, they all kind of looked like they were all fucking came out of the same underwear catalog.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
They all went to the same plastic surgeons, I guess.
Yeah.
Slasher Fred says, if you guys watched that series Buffy, I saw it here and there, but I haven't seen a lot of it. There was an episode where this guy, David Boreanaz, tries to ruin prom night by using prom horror movies to control these devil dogs. Oh, that sounds good. Okay. But yeah, so so this movie, like I said, the plot of this movie actually kind of reminds me of Prom Night, except Valentine's Day. And because it's a revenge thing, you know what I did like? The mystery aspect of it. There's not really any secret necessarily about who the killer is, because at the very beginning they do kind of like a prologue when all these people were back in junior high, I want to say, and it was like a Valentine's Day dance, and there's this super nerdy kid named Jeremy Melton, and he's asking all the girls to dance, the girls that are going to grow up to be the characters in the movie, and they're all to greater or lesser degrees being like an asshole, like, ew, no, you know what I mean, like that kind of shit. And then he asked this one girl who's like the fat girl, even though she's like not fat later. And he's like, well, will you dance with me? And she says, yeah. And then they go make out. But then like all these other dudes, like kids, like come and see them. And she's like, rape. And I was just like, thanks, bitch. Okay, whatever. And so now you're led to believe that this Jeremy Melton person is now grown up because they don't know what happened to him. And he's the one doing it because he sends them these Valentines and they're signed JM. So that's very much like My Bloody Valentine. And, you know, there's a whole nosebleed thing where it's like the killer has a nosebleed, like Jeremy Melton had a nosebleed back in the old days. And there's a little bit of a twist at the end, but not really. But one thing that I did like about it was that even though they don't really make a secret about who the killer probably is, they do have it so that, well, it's him, but you don't know what he looks like because they're like, he could have had like plastic surgery or something like that because he was just like in a reform school and then like he disappeared. And so they don't know what happened to him. So he could look like anybody. So, you know, it could be your boyfriend. It could be that guy. Another thing I like too is that, although I will say there are some good kills in this, as I mentioned, but the first 45 minutes or something, there's so many characters and all the blondes kind of look alike, and it kind of, in a way, this is almost kind of like a Hallmark horror movie because it kind of goes into their like relationship problems, like, hey, we're going to turbo dating, hey, we're doing this and that and the other, and we're having all these relationship problems. So it goes into that, but there is kind of some funny moments with that because one of the girls, which one? I guess it's the Katherine Heigl character. So this is like the very beginning. She's on this blind date with this dude named Jason, and Jason is this really creepy like he's kind of like really traditionally handsome, like with the chiseled jaw and everything. But he's one of those guys, he's like, well, you know, it's just natural evolution that, you know, like a man like me who is very successful, that you would be attracted to me. Except he talks to him about himself in the third person. So he's like, so you would be attracted to Jason because blah, blah, blah. Like he sounds like a psychopath. And it's like, so that part is actually kind of funny. I kind of wish they had done more with Jason because as I said, they're kind of trying to set up, because like every dude in this is like some kind of fucking psychopath or something, or like a sexual predator, and they're setting it up so it's like you don't know who the killer is. Like it could be anybody, because everybody just seems like a piece of shit. But I kind of wish that they had winnowed it down a little bit. I think they went a little too far out there with that, because there's too many incidental characters. Like Jason, they should have made him more of a character, because he's like at the beginning he's in that scene, but then like you only see him like very briefly like later on, and he was like such a psycho that I think that would have been better. But then there was like this other thing where one of the other girls, Kate, has this creepy ass neighbor who keeps asking her for a date, and then when she's out, like he goes through her underwear drawer and shit like that, and then he gets killed with an iron later on. So it's kind of like they set up all these guys as like red herrings, but then also sort of like cannon fodder as well. And I kind of wish that they had like winnowed down the cast a little bit, because I think there was just too much going on at the beginning, until you get to kind of like the climax, which takes place at this big Valentine's Day party where all the characters are kind of there at the same time, and then a bunch of them get killed. But it would have been good to kind of like pare that down a little bit, I feel like. Just streamline it. And some of the characters that were more funny, they could have... And I don't really think they needed that many girls either that looked the same. I kind of wish... I don't know, maybe that's more realistic, because like, yeah, those kind of chicks like would all hang out together realistically.
Yeah, speaking of along those lines, Gramthars says, Denise Richards was hot, but I bet after spending 5 minutes with her, the conversation would begin to get dry. You might be surprised. Well, okay, if that were to happen, it's because, look, there's a certain kind of person that seems to go far in Hollywood. And character is a problem with those people. It's kind of like the more sociopathic you are, the further you'll go in Hollywood. But it's not so much whether or not they look good or not, or they're pretty. There's kind of a stereotype about pretty women. Me and Jenny know all kinds of pretty motherfuckers, man. And no, they're great, you know. Shit, some of them look better than Denise Richards, and they have good personalities and fucking good sense of humor, and you know, fucking... Yeah,
I do feel like
you can't stereotype good-looking people. Some of them are fucking awesome.
I mean, you shouldn't really stereotype anybody, but I do kind of feel like, and maybe it's less now than it used to be, but I do kind of feel like that there is a stereotype, particularly with women, that really, really attractive women are dumb. Bitches, or they're dumb, or something, and that's absolutely not the case.
What happens is that some dumb chick can go further than she really should be going if she's real good looking, and that kind of sticks out. Or if some chick's a fucking psychopathic gold digger and she looks great, she'll go far too. But you're ignoring all the ones that look great like that are fucking normal or fantastic. They don't stick out as much.
Yeah.
When they're going far, you know. And it's just because they're not as annoying. Yeah. Anybody who's annoying, you're gonna notice. You're gonna notice
sadly.
Them. You're gonna, what the fuck is wrong with
that? The squeaky wheel gets the grace, as my grandma used to say.
Talking about Brie Larson and her Winstrol feet, you know, they were picking on her feet because she's fucking a bitch, and the reason why she's a bitch is because she's constantly jacked up on Winstrol. You know, you put a woman on fucking hormones and steroids, and fucking she'll get aggressive, and she says crazy shit, and she says crazy shit in public, so there's backlash. But that. People who don't know the fucking deal, the reason why Brie Larson's a bitch is because she's fucking constantly on Winstrol. Just say it. That's steroids.
Cheryl says, watched Picnic at Hanging Rock last night. Wish it had a better ending. Felt like the slow burn didn't pay off. We're going to be talking about that tomorrow, because I had not seen it for a really long time, so I was looking forward to watching it. We've already watched it, but we're going to talk about it tomorrow. And Gramthar also often speaks in the third person. Red flag? Yes, it is. Oscar says, boomers like to paint the narrative that modern times are vulgar, but those movies from the 70s and 80s were more raunchy.
Oh, yeah. much worse.
Yeah, they were much worse.
They were just fucking openly underage girls. And
I mean, particularly, not so much lately, but I do kind of feel like particularly horror movies, in maybe the post-Scream era and before the torture porn thing, a lot of them were kind of like this, where they were very, you know, they had murders and shit in them, and they were a little bit gory, but they were very sanitized, and they were very pretty and they were very generic. Like, it was just a bunch of pretty people getting sort of lightly stabbed kind of thing. You know, everyone was pretty and rich, and it was just a very generic. Like I said, no one was grubby, or it didn't really have a lot of grit to it. Everything just had this kind of like high glossy sheen on it, which doesn't always work in horror. I don't know. It depends on what you're doing, because I have seen some like that, but ones that have that sheen on them, I think it works better in horror if you're satirizing that more than like making it a regular movie. Slasher Fred also points out, and this is another thing that I wanted to point out, so thank you for reminding me. I've noticed how the insults these mean girls give the outcast foreshadows their murders. Yeah, I actually didn't realize that until I thought about it later on. Because at the scene where they're in junior high at the dance, and he goes up and asks each girl to dance, and they give him various, like, brush-offs. Like, you know, ooh, I think one of them says I'd rather drown, or I'd rather something like that. And then that turned out to be Denise Richards, and she drowns in the fucking hot tub or whatever. So whatever they say, because I think the girl that just says ew, gross or something, she's the one that gets the chocolates that have all the maggots in it, because there's that. You know, she gets chocolates with maggots in it. Let's see. Danny Rowling says a bio story film on killers Leonard Lake and Charles Ng would be cool to see. Have they not made? I mean, we did a show about it, but he was talking about like
like a biopic on them.
Yeah.
I think somebody tried to do one a fucking like a fan film version, real low budget version of the thing. Is the problem with that one is that they don't know all the details. They know they killed a bunch of people, but they're not exactly sure what they did to them. You know,
they'd have to like you'd have to use your imagination to like fill
Charles fucking Yang drew pictures that may, you know, when he was in prison, that may have shed some light on what they did to him. If it was true, it's fucking horrible, cooking some of them alive and giving them their fucking baby bones back and shit, because they'd take the fucking babies from the women and then tell them that they had the baby, keep it safe, and then they'd fucking come back and give the bones to the baby. It's just fucking, but they don't know if they actually did that or if they just fantasized about that. But they did kill those people, the kids and everything. Made porn movies with the girls for a while and then killed them. They had some damn videotapes of the fucking bodies in sleeping bags and rigor mortis in the fucking wheelbarrow. They were burning them. They found thousands and thousands of burned up bone fragments up there at their little cabin. And they had some girlfriend who evidently knew all about it and didn't tell on them. And she went and stole some videotapes from there before the fucking police had collected it from evidence. So she stole some videos that they had. They were probably videos of her because she was making porn with them. But it may have had maybe her interacting with some of the victims. So it's weird, man. There were two fucking Marines that basically were getting kicked out of fucking service for being shitbags. And
so they're like, let's go be the best shitbags we can be.
Yeah.
I guess.
And they were stealing full auto weapons from fucking the train. And they were just... What was funny about Ning is that Charles Ning wasn't even an American citizen. He was Chinese. And he wasn't even here legally. But it didn't matter. They had him in service somehow. He was able to rig it somehow where he could stay. But he wasn't from here, if I remember. He wasn't a legal citizen, I don't believe. There's all kinds of weird shit about that case. That was fucking... And I've seen... Some of the video survives. I've seen it. They weren't murdering anybody in the videos, but they were talking to those victims and shit. It was almost like cosplay or role-playing. It didn't even look real, but it was real.
Yeah, it's gross as shit.
Yeah, it's weird.
I mean, I think some of it's on fucking YouTube.
You used to be able to find it.
Yeah, I watched it on there before.
Them talking to some girl and fucking, they're kind of cutting her clothes off and saying you're going to have to go along with this if you want to live type of deal. And she's just kind of going along with it. And you could tell she's like fucking not really believing what's happening. But they got her baby. She says, where's my baby? She says, oh, your baby's asleep and it's sleeping like a rock. It's fucking crazy. And they were doing shit like they would answer personal ads where people were selling things like video equipment, and they'd go down there and they'd fucking abduct that whole family and kill them and steal the shit and keep the wife for a few weeks and then kill her up in some damn survivalist cabin. And fucking Leonard Lake was trying to get his whole breeding pod of fucking women so he could repopulate the planet after fucking Armageddon would happen. But of course, these dudes are fucking clowns, you know. They're very fantasy prone.
Yeah, a tad.
Yeah, very fantasy prone clowns.
But
they had willpower though. They had enough willpower to build.
That's not always a good thing.
They had enough willpower to build underground fucking vaults and fucking steal shit and fucking steal people's money and get them to sign things over to them. They did weird shit, you know, appropriating other people's stuff.
How much better a place would the world be if like psychos like that were just lazy as shit?
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, they weren't lazy. It's weird.
They could just like lay around and eat Doritos, and everyone else could just live their lives happily unmolested by these fucking scumbags.
They had military backgrounds, could make machine guns and stuff. Leonard Lake had Charles had he built a full auto MAC-10 and he had it suppressed and everything. And I think he might have started off with a semi-auto, but it had been converted to full auto, which is not easy because you going from fucking a hammer-fired weapon to a direct blowback. He went to direct blowback, which is hard to do. You have to manufacture a bolt. I don't know where he got it. Maybe he bought a bolt, but it was probably around during that time. But so they weren't dummies, just fucking lunatics, and they were clowns, you know, in certain ways. They just weird mixture of attributes, you know, very rare to have a person who has skills and has dedication and willpower, but then is fantasy prone and believes in shit that could never happen and kind of like live there. They were, and when you see videos of them, they're like cosplayers. They're not like real people.
Yeah.
When you see the video, you're like I would never take those dudes seriously if I saw them. They just don't come across as serious people. They weren't. They were clowns.
See, that's why whenever you meet anybody new, you should just assume they're a serial killer until it's proven otherwise.
Nah.
I'm just joking, seriously.
They give off vibes. Gramthars would probably know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a certain vibe that a pathological liar gives off. Because we grew up with a pathological liar. There's this weird, artificial, almost AI feeling to them. And every one of them fucking serial killers, if you listen to them, has that AI-ness to them. And I'll run across a person where they talk that way and they kind of repel you. You'll meet, and it's very rare that you find them. But when you do find one, you go, "Ooh, that's one of them." And it doesn't necessarily mean they're a serial killer. It just means that they're a pathological liar.
I was just joking though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me go back to this movie for a second because I'd forgotten to mention that this was actually directed by Jamie Blanks, who was the same guy that did Urban Legend. Now, I feel like I don't think I saw Urban Legend either, although I very well might have seen it and just didn't remember. Because like I said, I kind of feel like I like slasher movies, okay? It's not my favorite subgenre of horror. But if I'm going to watch a slasher, I think I'd rather watch like kind of more a sleazy like 70s or 80s ones. I kind of feel like slasher movies, with some exceptions, when you do them all slick like this one or like Urban Legend or something, it doesn't work as well. You really do. Like I said, this one is maybe a little bit elevated. One, because the killer looked kind of cool and distinctive. And two, because it had more of a mystery element. Not like full-on Giallo or anything like that, but it did have more of a mystery element to it. So I liked that about it. But I don't know. It's not a bad movie, but it's just kind of like, you know, if you've exhausted all the other Valentine's Day horror movies, and there's really not that many, like, now that I'm thinking about it. Like I said, My Bloody Valentine and the remake, and I don't know. And Picnic at Hanging Rock, which is not exactly a horror movie. It's kind of more like a creepy, like a mystery type thing. We'll talk about that tomorrow, but so there's really not a lot. But Shudder just added this. So, you know, if you're looking for something to watch later and you have Shudder, then, you know, you could do worse. It's not the worst slasher movie I've seen, but it's not super, super memorable either. It does have some kind of like funny scenes and some kind of cool shit in it, but it was just kind of like there, you know what I'm saying? And now I will say that it was better than the Prom Night remake, which I can't remember what year that came out, but I remember not liking that at all. because I remember that one just being kind of. Was this PG-13? I kind of feel like this might have been PG-13. Maybe not. It had that kind of vibe to it. I'm not a big fan of. I mean, there are some exceptions. There were some good horror movies that came out in the 90s, but I did like Scream. I did like some of that kind of stuff. But I do kind of feel like after like the 90s and the early 2000s, I feel like horror just went too slick, like too corporate, too... It just wasn't fun anymore. Everything seemed very samey. Until, like I said, you got more kind of like the torture porn kind of stuff, which I didn't love, but at least it was going in a more extreme retro grindhouse kind of direction, which I'm kind of more into that. So... but this is a decent slasher from that time period. And like I said, it's a slasher from 2001 that isn't self-aware like a lot of the post-Scream slashers were. It's a slasher that's very much like an 80s slasher. Like it's very earnest, I guess. It's not like self-referential, which I thought was kind of interesting. But other than that, I don't really know what else we could talk about. Oh, remember, you wanted to say when we were driving back from the restaurant, because like I said, that we went to the restaurant we went to for lunch for Valentine's was over on the river or the bay or whatever the fuck, and we'd never been over there before. So we were driving back this one way, and there's all these farms, and there's a farm there that does pick your own peaches.
Peaches, strawberries.
And pick your own strawberries. And then there's another organic farm that does organic honey and blueberries. It's like two different farms.
And then right over here.
And they might do beef.
Yeah, right next to us, right over here. I mean, a couple hundred yards from here. I didn't know it was there. There's about 200 head of cattle just laying down out in there.
Yeah, it was a lot of cows. It was a lot of cows.
And there's a couple different ways to do it. Sometimes you can go there and buy a baby cow and then pay for its feed for a couple years, and then once it gets to a certain size, they'll slaughter and butcher it for you, and then it's yours. That may be something I might look at. You can buy a cow from them and pay for the feed and let it grow big, and then they handle it and give it to you all in fucking cutlets. All in fucking once it's done.
But then when we were driving back too, when we were talking about, in the summer we should go and check out, go pick some peaches, and then suddenly we smelled weed. Yeah. So I was like, right. There's another farm out there. Somebody's growing some weed out there. I was like, God damn it.
These farmers fucking grow weed like crazy.
Well, might as well.
And they don't care.
No one cares.
They don't care. Fucking, that's not a big, as long as that shit's kind of kept low, the feds don't seem to be interested, the state doesn't seem to be interested.
It's just pot. Nobody cares anymore.
They just don't care. They got bigger problems. But that was even in the suburbs. It was the suburbs when we left. It wasn't when we moved there, that last place we were at. There was time we'd go out there and go, man, that's fucking weed. Strong weed.
Well, there was a house at the end of the trail that I used to walk on. There was like a house.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they were growing a bunch of weed back in the woods, because every now and then
you just smell the sap.
You would really and I feel like maybe they were trying out their new batch and see, because it was really, really strong. Sometimes
that's not the smell of it burning though. That's the smell of the plants.
I wonder why I couldn't smell it all the time though.
I guess they do.
It was just every now and then.
I guess there's certain seasons where the plants give off that damn smell. It might have something to do with their reproductive process.
Danny Rowling says, "How surprised were you by this ending's twist, Jenny? Did you see it coming?" I didn't. I kind of figured. This movie's like 20 years old, so David Boreanaz' character, who is the only guy in the movie who's not a complete douchebag, he's an alcoholic. But that's pretty much his only problem. But he's like the only nice guy, so I said, well, he's probably going to be the killer. And he does seem like he's the killer, but then also he kind of set up that character, the former fat girl. She's not fat anymore, but she was fat when she was younger. And so he kind of set her up as the killer. So I don't know if she actually killed some people or if it was just like a setup and he was actually the killer, because he's the one with the nosebleed. So... But yeah, I kind of did see it coming, but I didn't see it coming until the party toward the end. And Mango says Cherry Falls was a pretty good slasher from this period. I've been meaning to see that. I don't think I've ever seen it. I think Shudder added that one too, not too long ago. And I've heard a lot of other people bring it up. And that had, what's her name in it? That girl that was in Clueless that died. What was her name? Brittany something? Mm-hmm. I think she might have been in Cherry Falls. But yeah, I've been meaning to like get around to watching that. So yeah, I'll get around to that one of these days because I'm pretty sure that nasty chick washed her hair in the toilet. Yeah, I was just kind of like, I think if it got to that, like, because, you know, in the context of the scene, she was like taking a shower and her hair was full of shampoo and then the water got shut off. And so she was like, she called her, you know, landlord or whatever. And she's like, hey, the water's not on. You know, I have all this shit in my hair. And then I think I would have waited a little bit longer for somebody to come and turn the water on before I stuck my head in the toilet, even if it was clean. Just saying. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I kind of feel like there's other options that you could have like utilized before sticking your head in the toilet. That wouldn't have been the first thing that I would jump to. Yeah, Brittany Murphy, that's right. Yeah, she was in Cherry Falls. But yeah, you're not the first person because I've heard a lot of other people like say that was really good and kind of underrated. So yeah, I'll eventually get around to seeing that one. I'm pretty sure I remember either seeing it on Shudder or seeing it like on Tubi on one of those services. All right, so anything else you would like to add?
Nope, done.
Nope, done.
Done.
All right.
I'm helping somebody on here, so.
Okay. Well, have a good rest of your Valentine's Day, everybody. Hope you're having a good one. And we'll be back tomorrow talking about another sort of Valentine-themed movie, which is Picnic at Hanging Rock, the original Peter Weir version. They actually did a remake in 2018, which I didn't even know about until yesterday, but I haven't seen that one. So we're going to be talking about that tomorrow, so we will see you guys tomorrow afternoon. Bye.